Hi there, this is Dani, and the channel is You and Me Living Free, and I'm going to tell the story today of my disaster that was averted in Death Valley, and then just blabber on about some of the realities of traveling solo as a female and what that means. So let's dig into it. Let me give you a little backstory because I didn't take a lot of video of the disaster part because, when those things happen, it's the last thing I'm thinking of really is pulling out the video camera. I'm lucky to get what I did get. So let me just set the stage really quickly. I'm in Death Valley. I'm not there now. I don't know if you can notice out the windows. I'm making this video a little later. I'm already in a different location. I won't even say where. If you keep watching, you'll see. It's not the very next location, but the one after that. But anyway, I'm in Death Valley. If you've been there or if you've watched my Death Valley videos for now, you know it can be a very desolate place. It's hot, it's inhospitable. Even in November, the temperatures were mid 80s on the flats, the flat sections of the valley, and then they're cooler in the upper elevations. So I'm in Death Valley, and I had literally just finished my hike. So if you have watched the Golden Canyon hike, you can tell at the end of that video, like, I feel like I'm on top of the world. It was a beautiful hike. I had a goal of doing 2 miles. I ended up doing almost 2.8. It was gorgeous. I was feeling so good, and I got back to the car and to the van, and I'm like, cue the Rocky music. I do my little video. I sit there and have some food and some water, feeling great. My plan was to stay in Death Valley one more day. I was going to drive back. I was on the east side of the park, drive up and over to Immigrant Campground where I stayed the night before and stay there again, and then continue west out of Death Valley and I would pass Darwin Falls. I was going to do Darwin Falls hike in the morning. Then I was going to have a nice, easy kind of 3-hour drive or so to my next destination, which was going to be Alabama Hills. So after this hike, I've got all the good endorphins. I'm feeling amazing. And I pull the van out and start to drive even in the parking lot, and I hear the plop-plomp, plop-plomp, plop-plomp of the tire, right? And there were a couple of times when I was driving around Death Valley that I had that thought of, wouldn't it be a nightmare to have car trouble in Death Valley? Wouldn't that just be the worst, right? And I wasn't obsessing over it, and I didn't, I wasn't worried per se, but I'd had that thought creep in a couple times, like, I want to be careful because wouldn't it be, this would be the worst. And then I would think about the Toyota and how dependable they are, and that's why I bought this van in the first place, is because that's one of the huge factors. And I was praising my car for being so dependable and so, love this engine and transmission. You're going to take me past 300,000 miles. Like, I talk to my van like that, right? And it's such a good thing I can be such a dork with you guys, and you completely support me in my dorkiness. I do appreciate that. But anyway, so I was trying not to panic. I get out of the van and I look down, and the passenger side in the rear was not all the way flat. Like, it wasn't particularly riding on the rim, but it was low enough. And as I said, when I backed out, it was plunk, plunk. So I knew I was kind of in trouble. So I'm trying to keep my mind from racing. I'm trying to keep my mind from just starting to cry and just going into, oh shit mode, right? And I'm just trying to just kind of breathe deep. We'll take this one thing at a time. I knew I wasn't too far from one of the visitor centers. The Furnace Creek Visitor Center I thought about 3 to 5 miles away from my little map. So I was like, can I make it to the visitor center to see if, I don't even know, some visitor centers, all they have is a bathroom. it wasn't a visitor center. It was just one of the things along the road. And, you know, if you've been to a lot of national parks, some little things along the road have all kinds of services. It's like a little town even. And some will just have a bathroom and, you know, maybe whatever, you know, maybe a couple of other things and maybe that's it. So anyway, I was like, okay, I did know they had a gas station. So I was like, hopefully they'll have service at the gas station. That's only a few miles away. Can I make it? And I'm like, you know, with the kerplunk, I better not. So I try my phone to see if I can call AAA, and I couldn't. I didn't have enough signal. So then I'm looking around the parking lot and I'm like, okay, all these van life people, a lot of them carry air compressors. Maybe I can find one with an air compressor. And I look around the parking lot. There's no one that looks like, there's no sprinters with the high top. There's no trucks with campers on the back. There's no like minivans with the, you know, with the tie-dye in the window, right? Like anything that's identifiable as you travel in your vehicle. There was none of that. But I was kind of walking around the car and I was getting a little upset and I was just kind of staring at the back of my tire and I'm starting to cry just a little bit, right? And I'm not freaking out, but I'm like, okay, it's because it's not like it's early in the morning. It's like an 85-degree day. It's about 2 in the afternoon. And I'm like, okay, here, you know, let's get this taken care of. So I'm kind of concerned. I'm looking at my back tire. And this couple is walking up and I just said, out of the blue, I just said, hi, excuse me. I said, you don't have an air compressor in your car, do you? And they had a truck, like a small truck, like a Tacoma or one of those, a Wrangler or something, or not a Wrangler, but you know what I mean? A small truck. And he was like, no, I'm sorry. And then he was like looking and he said, well, it's not completely flat. I don't even see anything, you know, where you have it. Do you have a spare? I'm like, well, I do have a spare, but you know, with the way they put on these tires, I just didn't think I was going to have the ability to change this tire myself. And I was freaking out at that kind of whole possibility. And he says, wait a minute. He remembered that he had bought an air compressor and it was just a small, great thing. And he'd never used it. And it was in not in his trunk, somewhere in his back seat or whatever. He goes, wait a minute, I think I do have one. He goes, let's see if it works. I've never had it out of the box before. So this amazing couple, he's like, she's opening up the box, he's taking it out and he's filling my tire. And I'm like, oh God, please let this work. And we could tell there was a little bit of air going in because the tire was just coming up just a tiny bit. But I was worried that if the leak were strong enough, you know, as soon as we started putting air in, maybe it wouldn't go up all the way or something, or the air compressor wouldn't work right. So I'm still like consciously making myself breathe really deeply, but I'm starting to get a little bit optimistic, but there's still a lot of obstacles in the way, right? Because I knew I could probably get to the visitor center thing because it was close enough, right? And I knew they had a service station, at least with gas, so I was hoping there would be someone there. Or if not, maybe I could get a signal from there and call AAA, right? So he got the tire blown up. It was looking pretty full. And then I had to drive the 5 or more miles to get to the service station, okay? And I was just like, I had my hazards on and I was going slow because I was worried that it might blow out. Sometimes when I'm on the road and I'm in dangerous situations or people are following really closely or there's a lot of traffic or complicated situations, I think in my mind, okay, if the car in front of me had a blowout and went wobbly or whatever, am I following at a safe enough distance where I would be okay and be able to react? And am I paying enough attention where no matter what, if that would happen, I would be okay? I really try to be conscientious about my driving. So I put on my hazards just so anyone around me might know I might not be safe here. And instead of driving the 55 or 60 or whatever the speed limit was right there, I went about 35 or so. And I got to the service station. And then I think I have a little bit of video there at the service station. And I was trying to decide, once I got to the service station, I was really trying to decide, what am I going to do now? Am I going to, once I got to the service station, I found out immediately that there was a technician there and that he could patch my tire if he could find a leak or whatever, that he could possibly patch it. He's like, let's take a look. He takes the tire off. He's taking a look at the tire. It turns out there was a little wire that was poked in, and it was a small leak. And so he was able to patch it. I'm like, oh, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. So that's taken care of. Now, tiny bit of backstory. I've had 2 tires that I have had patched over these last several years, and neither one has held. Now, they didn't fail right away as soon as I had the patch done, but they did both fail within, I would say, a couple of months of having it. So like in my mind, my tire is still not completely safe. And I'm telling myself again, like, this is kind of like the fear of heights thing. You're being a little bit irrational. You know, chances are this is going to be just fine. But I was debating in my mind, and I was trying to decide, okay, at this point, I know that Pahrump, Nevada is an hour and a half or so away. I think my thing is right. An hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at the most away. And I had spent the night before a couple nights before I had spent in Pahrump. So it was safe. I knew it. It was a big enough town. I could get a new tire. I knew there was tons of BLM land that was easy to access. Like, it was something I was familiar with. It was feeling safe. The other thing I could do is go on to my destination. But if I went to my destination, which was Alabama Hills, it was going to be more like a 3-hour drive. And by now, I'm worried about sunset because I do not drive at night because I have very poor night vision. I have kind of astigmatism, and I don't judge distances well at night. I don't see if there's any precipitation or if there's any lights on the road, as in like road construction, any of that. I don't see well at night, so I try at all costs not to drive at night. Plus, my nerves were fried at this point. I had been up kind of early. I had a very challenging hike. I had all of this stress, and I was like, am I going to be able to do that? And so, it was kind of decision time. So let me go to the other video that I actually did shoot, and then I will talk you through the rest of the story, and we'll see what happens. So after he patches my tire, I'm like, so now I really should be safe with this tire, right? And he says, yes, you'll be fine. And I was feeling a little more confident, but still not completely confident. But I was feeling a lot better anyway. So I went ahead and made the decision that I could go to Alabama Hills. Now, there were a couple of challenges with going to Alabama Hills. Number one, it was further than Pahrump. Number two, I'd never been there, so I didn't know what kind of services I was going to be looking at. I didn't know a lot of things about it, but I knew people had told me about it, and I knew there was a good chance there'd be a nice, at least a little town where I could do my business, get my gas, get my groceries, do all of that, and have a service center if I needed it. But it was a longer drive, and like we've been talking about, Death Valley can be pretty desolate. I mean, there's not that much traffic. It's a long way in between stops. I had already done a hike. I'm thinking, if I'm forced to walk, I could potentially be in trouble. And there were a lot of places along the road where there's not even much of a shoulder at all or walking space. So all of this just kind of weared on my nerves. And even though I was driving this, I was still driving a little bit slower than usual. Like I think it was a 60 or 65 and I'm going more like 55. There wasn't that much traffic. I wasn't really holding up people behind me, and I would, pull over sometimes and let people pass if I did. But so I decided to head for Alabama Hills, and it was still nerve-wracking, but I was like, okay, I can do this. And with each mile that the tire held, I got a little more confident in the tires themselves, and I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And as soon as I started to kind of feel that and feel good about my decision, then I started heading uphill into the mountains, and this just freaked me out, because you know how I am with mountain roads and heights anyway. And then the thing is, if I'm starting out in the morning and I know I'm going to have to drive through some mountains and stuff, then I can psych myself up. I can handle it. But this drive was like, there were about 15 miles or so of these. There's the car going down, you can see, of that kind of right on the edge, and 15 miles of it, and back and forth and around so many blind corners. I can't even tell you how many blind corners. So this was where I just stopped. I was trying to show you guys kind of the road, but that was somewhere I just stopped along the road because I wanted to see, like, how much more of this do I have, and I needed to collect myself, and I needed to do some tapping. And this is seriously like this part of the journey. Then this is a little further down the road at an actual overlook. It's called Father Crowley Point, maybe Father Crowley something. And it is gorgeous, but I was really not truly, my heart wasn't in it. I wasn't appreciating the view. I was actually having the ugly cry up here and doing a little more tapping. And I was just so ready to be done with this. And when I looked at my map again, I thought, okay, I'm 2/3 of the way through. It looks like most of the most dangerous curvy curves are done. I can do this. I can get through it. So I'm just kind of talking to myself this way to try to get through it, because at this point I had enough. I had enough. I was ready for rest, and for safety, and for a feeling of security. And even after getting in the mountain, getting through this mountain drive, which I did, of course I did, then there was more desolation. There's more flat, there's more heat, there's more going miles and miles without seeing other people, right, on the way to my destination. Because when you're out on this road, I have loved ones, I have amazing friends who would do anything for me, but the fact of the matter is, when you're on the road like this, you are alone. I knew I had a friend who was in Pahrump, or at least close to Pahrump, that I could have called on if I had headed back that way. But I mean, you are essentially alone unless you're with a caravan or something. And I've been a single mom for about 12 years or so, and I am used to kind of carrying the burden and everything. But there are times when I just need to take a step back and have some security. And I would have said before that I want someone to take care of me, but I've gotten to the point where I'm good at taking care of myself, but I need to recognize what I need, and I need to give it to myself. And at this point, I was so happy to see that little sign we just passed. I reached Alabama Hills. It's almost dark. Look at that sky. And it's gorgeous. Okay, I'm gonna be all right. On my way to the sign, I had already passed a gas station. I knew I was in a little town area, so I knew I was going to be okay. And here I knew I needed to be around some people. I needed to stay close to town just to have that security. And I needed to give myself some time to rest and time to figure out what I needed to make myself feel okay and feel safe again. And I did that, and Alabama Hills was my reprieve and was amazing. You'll see the next couple of videos where I'm there, and And I hope you stick around for those, just like you stuck around till the end of this video. I cannot believe it. You know you deserve a medal now. And thank you so much for sticking with me. I'm sending you love, and I'll catch you next time.